the I'm a Fan Of podcast, music, comedy, and more.
All right, Sammy Kidd. Dude, what's up?
Not much, man.
We were talking a little bit in here about how I've always talked to you with other people around. The rest of the band has always been there. And I was like, I don't think I've ever talked to him by himself. So
yeah, we did that one video thing some years ago.
Yeah,
in 2016.
man, that was so much fun.
That was fun.
I really
still go back and watch it.
I really want to start a project up like that again because I enjoyed it. It was just kind of time consuming. And sorry, pull that a little closer or scoot up just a little bit. That's all good. But for people who don't know, back before all this was started, was that y'all's first EP? Like the self-titled Mean Motor Scooter thing?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, and so I was trying to do these spotlights on individuals and bands to try to help promote the bands.
Yeah.
It was fun.
Yeah, it was great promotion. I had a ton of people come up to me after we did that and tell me how much they loved it.
I might have to find the link. It's still out there. And it's one of those where I loved a lot about it. And then obviously, it's like, maybe 10 years later now?
Yeah.
So now,
to it.
So now you're also like, I could have done a lot of things different.
Yeah, sure. It's hard for me to go back and watch my own interviewer answers and things like that. I don't know. It's just been a long time.
I still remember watching you guys because when that first EP came out, was it EP or full album? It's EP, right? With the one with the red scooter on it.
Yeah.
I don't remember how I stumbled across it, but I have a physical CD of it because you guys mailed it to me. Nice. So I don't remember if I bought that or if y'all just sent it to me being nice or what. But
I don't know.
I don't remember, but I have that and I have a button, and those are tucked away. And I remember going to watch y'all at Lola's when it was in like its heyday. They didn't have an outside stage yet. It was just that inside stage. And y'all were only a 3-piece. I think it might have been your first year or two of being in the band, right?
Yep.
And just thinking, holy shit, the energy of a 3-piece, right? Like, there's something, I know the band has evolved now, but there's something that's always gotten me about 3-pieces that fill a room.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
I totally get that.
And those days of Mean Motor Scooter now are like really special to me because I just think, man, there's so few bands that I've seen pretty much at the beginning. I might have not seen y'all for 6 months, and then I saw, from when you first started.
It probably was about that.
How do you think about it now, knowing you guys are 9-10 years into this?
Man.
Is it exciting? Is it weird?
It's cool. It's nice to have to kind of watch things progress, see how like over the years what's changed, and just that we're still doing it because a lot of the bands that we started with aren't bands anymore. So even like a lot of the bands we looked up to or really wanted to play shows to and eventually started playing with, and then they're doing something else now. I mean, so it's cool.
We messaged a little bit about it, about just the evolution of the Dallas and Fort Worth music scene and how much it's changed.
It has.
It's wild.
And a lot of venues are closing in Fort Worth now. So
yeah. I talked about it on here with someone else that we drove to Fort Worth to watch a band at Tulips. And that was our first experience there. It's a beautiful venue, right?
Yes.
And I don't know if you know them, but it's a band called the Deslons, and they're a little bit bigger. But we didn't have a gauge on like, are they super famous? Are they like, what's the deal here?
Yeah.
And so we showed up to Tulips early. And granted, it was a weeknight, but this is a well-established touring band.
Right, so it's going to be packed.
Yeah, so we showed up, and literally maybe, I don't know, 6 to 10 people are there.
What?
Yeah, because we were thinking, we better get here early. We've never seen the venue. We don't need to be up front, but we want to get a good spot.
Yeah.
And we got there, and I was talking to the door guy. I was like, so do the crowds here show up a little later? How are the ticket sales or whatever? And he's like, I don't know, man. We might be doing like 50, 60 people tonight.
Wow.
And I was just thinking, what is happening that you've got this good band, objectively good band, even if you don't like the style, right?
Sure.
And then you've got a gorgeous venue, great sound. It's in a good part of town. Like, it's easily accessible. Everything is here for a great show. And then it's not packed out,
That's so weird.
It's super weird.
Yeah.
I mean, we were literally like, everyone that came to watch the show was able to hang out with the band on the patio kind of thing.
Yeah. Which, I mean, that's kind of cool, but for a venue like Tulips with so much open space, it kind of feels weird.
It's cool for all the fans.
Yeah.
But it's
definitely
bad for the people who need to make money and get to the next town.
Yeah.
And that was my concern is, man, I wonder if they're going to come back after that experience.
Man, all of my experiences with Tulips have been really good.
So we just caught a freak night then.
I think you did, because every time I've gone or played, it's been pretty busy.
Yeah.
I saw Waves there. I got to open for the Black Lips. I saw Wunderbar play there.
All right, so we just had a weird night then.
I think so.
Yeah, because when we got in there, we were like, man, this place is gorgeous. It's nice, you know?
Yeah, it's really nice.
But we don't know much about Fort Worth. And then, you know, what are some of the venues that closed recently?
Well, Lola's for one of them. I know they had to move, and it was going well for a while. I don't really know what happened. I think
because they kind of made it through the pandemic, right?
Yeah. I mean, they were still drawing plenty of people. They had, you know, every time that I went there, it seemed pretty busy. But I think everyone's talking about the rent going up, and not being able to compete with that. So I don't know.
Yeah, and you can't just turn all of your venues into new condos.
Yeah, I know.
So I hope that's not the case.
Terrible.
Yeah, I don't know. I think about that a lot, about how to reshape the scene. You know, because it'll never be what it was, but it needs to be something new.
Yeah,
there needs to be something going on. But I loved your thoughts on like the younger generation.
Yeah,
and like how to get them involved. But I don't know. I mean, do you think that's the big thing? Is like, what were we talking about? Like how they get a lot of stuff from social media videos or something, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think TikTok and all the streaming platforms have changed the way we listen to music, and just like nobody really listens to a full record anymore. So I really wanted to put out a full record and, you know, make it beginning to end kind of a cohesive thing. But I don't know. When we played at Boiled Owl the other night, there was a younger band called Labels. They were really good. And seeing bands like that are younger, that are bringing in the people, that's inspiring. I mean, it gives me hope.
Did you talk to them about what they think the differences are?
No, we didn't talk much. I did notice we had a very similar setup. Like we listened to a lot of the same bands, I could tell, and we had, you know, the same pedals and stuff. But I didn't really get to get their take on what's happening to Fort Worth.
Yeah, because I'm thinking about, you know, when I was in bands, it's like you got a band, you made some songs, you thought you're pretty good. You had like maybe 20 minutes. So you're thinking, okay, I can be an opener somewhere on some shitty show, right? Some house show, something, a little, like we were scrounging up shows in anything that was kind of a venue and just set up your own PA. And then it seemed like we were in this heyday where there's all these good venues in Dallas and Fort Worth. And so you could put on like legitimate good shows at respectable venues, you know, and it felt easy. And I don't know if we took it for granted then, but it felt pretty simple. You know, it felt like, man, we've got this great scene. People will book you. You didn't need to know anyone. You just had to find out like, oh yeah, that's the person who does it. If you shoot them an email or something, they'll make it work. Yeah. And I struggle to see the path now for newer bands. Yeah,
there's less open mics. There's less places to get your foot in the door. I know when we started, we would go to like Embargo on Monday night. Open mics and play 2 songs, and everyone would come in and
As Me Motor Scooter?
Not yet. That was where we actually met Joe, and he joined and we started recording that first EP.
So when you're saying we, who? Because I've never heard the story of how y'all actually joined, like got together. So was it you and Chase?
Me and Chase, and we would go there and just play as a 2-piece with no bass. And then Joe said he had a studio at his house and he played bass, so we were like, can you record us? Also, can you play bass?
Yeah.
And I guess he just kind of fit in. It just worked out.
Yeah, that's like I said, it always felt like it was easy. Like all you had to do was just go play, just do stuff.
I mean, that is what it was.
Yeah.
It was very simple. It was, if you go and hang out at the Grotto when that was around, you could get a show there.
The Grotto's not around anymore either, huh?
No.
Oh my gosh.
It turned into a taco place.
I mean, I love tacos, but like I need venues. Because I remember, you know, I've always tried to like write something, or I've always enjoyed seeking out bands, whatever, trying to just find these little nooks. And I loved going to those shows that were $5 shows.
Yes.
And you'd see 6 bands on a bill. And a couple of them suck, a couple of them are pretty good, a couple of them figuring it out.
Find a band you like.
Yeah.
Make new friends.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And I don't know, man. To me, and maybe it's just because I'm like getting older and jaded, but it feels like the people who are currently involved, not the people who are coming in. It's almost like they just got punched in the stomach and they're depressed and they don't know how to get out of their little funk. You know, they're just like, I don't think it'll ever work again.
Yeah, I mean, I get why things get discouraging sometimes, especially after the pandemic. That was hard on a lot of bands and venues. But I don't know. I think it's up to us to kind of keep pushing forward, to keep inspiring people to start bands and coming out, whether even if it's a house show. Like those, I remember going to some house shows in Denton that were some of the best shows I've ever seen. And there's no door cost, there's no bar. It's just a bunch of people packed into a room.
Did you bring some beer with you? Please come in.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, Denton, you hit it like right. That was those. Excuse me. Those were the shows. Like every band I've ever been in, you had like a rite of passage to go to a Denton house show and play. Like if you didn't do that, it's like you almost weren't cool, and it wasn't going to happen.
That's
you
so
know?
true.
And I don't, with comedy in Denton, it was the same way. There were some guys that they ran like a little show, and they would put on. They ran a podcast that was a live show, but they also did comedy shows, and they were called the Brave Boys.
Oh, okay.
And it was like guerrilla effort, DIY comedy stuff.
That's
It was very Denton, and I mean that in a positive way.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, you wonder. It's like, okay, do we just need to find the new people that get that going and get excited about it? I think maybe overall, I just feel like there's a lack of excitement, and I don't know why.
There is.
And it gets frustrating because there's so much cool shit.
There is. There's a lot of cool stuff, and I've kind of been out of the loop for a little bit, I feel like, because we're starting to play more shows again, and I've just been sitting in my room writing this record and, focusing on recording it and all that. But getting back out and seeing some of the bands that are playing, like there are new bands, and there
really
are
good.
really good bands.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, I don't know if it's just because people are getting used to sitting in their rooms and recording a video, or if it's just the nature of music, or the loss of venues, or maybe it's everything put together.
I thought about it a lot after you were talking to me, when we were messaging about the way social media has changed it. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I do agree with you on so much of that, but it's like, better than anyone. Yeah, it's fun to play your guitar and like in front of your phone, write a song and play alone, right? But there's just something different about getting on a stage with people that you've been rehearsing with. There's just that energy. It's like with the comedy stuff, there's a lot of crossover. It's like you can watch the most incredible comedy special you've ever seen, but there's something better about being at that show.
Yeah, it's funnier. And
it's just there's some sort of thing about that crowd you can't put into words.
Yeah, there is something magical about having all the people around you feeling the exact same thing that you're feeling in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And
because that was one of the things I remember from that very first Mean Motor Scooter experience that I was talking to you about, is my wife and I went, we grew up, on punk rock music. We love punk rock music. And being in Texas, it's like, yeah, there's some pockets of that, but it's never been the mainstream here, right?
Yeah.
And at the time of that EP, you guys hadn't blended a lot of surf stuff yet. It was very like punch you in the gut, in your face, right?
Yeah.
And so I remember going to that show going like, no, I heard a single, I think a couple songs or something at that point, and I was like, let's just go check it out. I think it's going to be pretty cool. And I didn't know anybody in the band, didn't know anything about y'all. And then it's like the first song comes out. I even remember the amps. I remember Joe's big bass cabinet. And just basic Fender bass guitar, right? Mm-hmm. And I think you were playing on an Alamo amp. Yeah. Do you remember that old Alamo amp?
It's still at the studio.
Which guitar did you have? It wasn't a green one yet, was it?
I was playing like a Squier Telecaster that had been kind of beefed up.
Right.
And then I later painted it.
That was the one you painted. Yeah. You tried to paint it like surf green with like house paint or something, right? Yeah, okay.
And I trashed it out, and then I traded it for a Silvertone amp. It was busted. I later got it fixed, and it sounds great.
But I can picture that Alamo amp, and then I remember like sneaking up and checking out the pedal board, and it was just like a Big Muff Fuzz or something on there.
Yep.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And I remember thinking like, fuck, the sound is so big. And maybe that was partly because Joe knows so much about gear.
He definitely taught me a lot.
Yeah, but it's like there's something like you can't feel that big wave between the two of you playing these amps that are just loud and brash. And then you got Chase, who plays hard.
Yeah.
Right? Going to town. And then at the time, it's like, especially locally anyway, there was nobody really singing the way you were doing it.
No, there wasn't.
Right? Because you've always had a style that's very much like, I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
I'm going to sing the way I'd like to sing.
Yeah.
And I remember my wife and I just kind of looked at each other and were like, okay, all right, here we fuck, like big smiles, and she, because people always look at her like she's not into that music, and that's what she was raised on. And So it's like we look at each other, you just give that little elbow tap, and we're like, all right. And she's like, I'm going to get a drink. I'll be right back. It's like, okay, perfect. And I just remember thinking like, this is the excitement of a live show. This is why you go out. This is why you see an opener, because y'all would have been the first or second band on that show probably.
Yeah.
And it's like, even at that show with the Des Lawns where there was only like 50 people, we talked to these really young kids. They look like they were probably, I say really young, I'm 38, so they were probably like 19, 20, 21. Like somebody had X's on the hands, right?
Oh, okay. So they were pretty young.
Pretty young. And we were like, how'd you hear about this? Because we felt like this was old people music like us, you know?
Sure, yeah.
We're like, how'd you hear about it? And they're like, oh, our buddy's super into it. He drove in from Louisiana, and we live here and go to school. And he's like, I want y'all to come with me to this show.
Oh, nice.
And then they showed up for the opener. They were there for the whole show. And we caught them afterwards, and we're like, what'd you think? And they're like, so incredible. And then they talked about the opener. They're like, we've never heard of her. It was this woman, Esther Rose, who's really good.
Oh, okay.
And they were like, we never heard of her. She was great. And it's like, yeah, that's the live show. That's why you go. You know, this dude was like, you two, you're coming with me to a show. Let's go. And they were like, all right, fuck it. Let's go. And it's like, wow, it took this guy from Louisiana to get the excitement up here, you know?
Yeah.
And that's what I've been racking my brain on. It's like, okay, we got to figure out how to get people fired up again. You know what I mean?
Yes, I do.
I mean, because it's all there.
Yeah.
It's all there.
It is. There, and young kids still are going out to shows. I think just what they're getting out of it is different. I think people in the newer generations like stuff that's more relaxed, maybe more calm. I don't know. It seems, but then again, like I said, that band Labels we just played with was very like garage punk, surf, you know, all the stuff I love. So I don't know.
What venue were y'all at when you played?
We
that?
played Boiled Owl.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you played your 3-Link show yet, or is that coming up?
That is this upcoming Friday.
Okay, so this episode will come out after that. So you guys already had a phenomenal show, but but that's one of the venues here too. I feel like that gives those bands a lot of opportunity. 3-Links.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're one of the ones where I'm like, okay, I feel like they do it right. You know,
they do. I heard they went through some ownership changes recently, so I'm hoping they stick around and that nothing happens to 3-Links, because it's a special venue to me. I really love 3-Links.
It's, you know, I've had the fortune to play on that stage, and I look a lot at venues about like how they're set up in the environments. It really shouldn't be a good venue. You know what I mean? Just the fact that the bathrooms are next to the stage, and like when you need to take a piss, you're walking right by the band. You're like, hi. Like,
I know exactly what you mean.
And the fact that you have all that street noise, like if the doors are open, there's distractions. You're not fully in there. But something about it, there's a little bit of magic in that room, and none of those faults matter. It's still a fun, great venue. And man, that's scary to think they changed ownership, because Deep Ellum is in its another pop right now. So if they decide to start raising rents like they did in Fort Worth, that would fucking suck.
And I heard, well, I mean, it goes both ways too with the garage being open, because people walking by stop and see it. But then I know there was the sound ordinance problem. They were talking about
once they started doing apartments
or something. Yeah. So,
which I feel like if you move to Dallas and decide to move in Deep Ellum, you accept like on Friday, Saturday, we're going till 2 a.m.
Yeah. I mean, why come here? Why live next to the venues if you're going to complain about that?
And have you driven through or just walked through Deep Ellum on a Saturday night lately? If the music's not loud, it's like, do you see all the cars and the people?
Yeah.
Like, it's now been a cruise spot for like all of the Dodge Challengers in DFW.
It's loud.
And
no
they just get
what.
there and just like, wow. And they're like, yeah, but keep that music down.
Yeah, right? I mean, every time we would play Deep Ellum, most of the times the street would be closed down because it would be so packed and filled with people. So I'm like, what's the issue?
Yeah, that seems like a weird developer thing where they're like, we're trying to rent more apartments.
Yeah.
And it seems dicey. And it's like, yeah. Did you guys do any of your homework down here? Like, it's always
been. This was a hot new area.
Yeah. It's been sketchy since like the 20s.
Yeah.
Excuse me, the 1920s.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, I don't know. I love that place. Double Wide's also great. But
I love Double Wide.
But that's another venue, like, it shouldn't work. Because that whole separate venue from the bar thing, But then you go watch a show and people embrace it and it's packed out and you're having a good time.
Yeah.
And it's like,
I went and saw Daikaiju there not long ago, and that was an awesome show.
Yeah. And it should be too small of a stage. But then it ends up being like kind of perfect because it's a little too small.
It's just big enough to where everybody's kind of crunched together, but they still have enough room.
You're the right amount of uncomfortable.
Yeah,
You're just like a little sweaty, like a little film, but you're not going to leave.
Yeah.
I love there how if you're kind of towards the back by the bar, that you can watch the band and the sound guy all at once. And it's all in your field of view. And it's like, hell yeah. But it's exciting. Man, speaking of your new record, though, it's weird to think about your band, I mean this politely, being an immature band that is also maturing at the same time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean.
How does that feel to you, knowing like the sound changes? Because it's never been like stupid or silly, but there's always been just a really immature aspect to it that's fun, you know?
Well, I mean, that's what it boils down to. It's like, it's fun. And I just can't imagine doing anything else. Like, I mean, I know we're all getting older, but that's never going to go away.
Yeah.
Like, I'll always enjoy seeing loud, raunchy bands, and I'll always enjoy playing in a loud, raunchy band.
Yeah.
But even still, like, the new record is a little bit more of a pop aspect to it, because going and seeing something live and loving it versus listening to the record are two different things. And so I wanted both to, you know, be neck and neck, try to put out the best record as possible while still capturing that live essence. That's
y'all have always, to my ear, y'all have always had two versions of the band.
Yeah.
The record and the live show.
Yeah. And that's great to some extent, but you know, if you want to grow as a band, you got to put out you got to be equal.
Yeah. I mean, I used to be a real stickler for I want the show to be exactly like the album that I love.
Yeah.
Right?
Sure.
But I've given up on that now. Now I've decided, no, these are two different things.
They are.
And I've really come to embrace that. Have you thought about how or I'm curious about anyway, when you started recording, you know, obviously you're recording with Joe because he's got a great studio.
Yeah.
Did y'all have discussions about how the record should sound? Like who kind of gets it to sound like Mean Motor Scooter when you record it?
Man, it was just trial and error, really. Like, we put something out, like, for instance, the EP, and I'd go, okay, I like this, I like this, I like this, I don't like this, don't like this, don't like this. So the next release, we try and do it.
So what was some of the stuff that you didn't like? Do you remember those?
Yeah, like we talked about, I wanted it to be more ballsy. I wanted it to be capture more of that live essence. And so when we recorded Hindu Flying Machine, we went from tracking everything digitally to tracking it all live to tape.
Yeah.
And that was fun, but it still wasn't there yet. So when we did the next two EPs,
what were the two after that?
TV Baby and Mr. Sophistication.
Okay.
So I wanted those to just be as raunchy as it felt playing it live. And so we just tried some different things, experimented with some different stuff. And
I'm sorry, I'm going to look at some of the discography because you guys, it was Hindu Flying Machine, the one that has
the cartoon faces.
No, I'm thinking of the song, the boom, 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 boom,
yeah.
boom, boom, boom. Is that Seducer?
Yeah, that's such a such a seducer. That was from the single that we released right before that record.
So had you had it dialed in at that point the way you liked it? Or was that where you're still trying to tweak it?
I liked the way those recordings sounded for that single. I just wanted to do something different musically. Okay. When we came to Hindu Flying Machine, I was trying to capture more of that surf rock essence. And that old 60s garage rock kind of thing. But then after we put that out, I wanted to do something a little more psychedelic, but still have the balls that it had before.
Which that's difficult. Because psychedelic, I think that's one of the reasons it's like, if it comes on, I don't change it. But I don't seek it out much because it usually sounds too frail and light.
Yeah, it can go a lot of different directions. But I wanted to see if we could keep all the angst and the anger, but do something a little different.
Mm-hmm.
But then after putting those out, I was like, well, maybe I'll try not screaming on a record. see how that sounds.
No.
But I mean, it's still got, a few screams here and there. But, just wanted to see how it would sound if we did something a little more like polished or something with just more singing vocals. Mm-hmm. So
speaking of your vocals, did you consciously think about your vocals ever, right? Because people are everybody's got an opinion on what makes a good vocal, right?
Oh, sure.
And like yours clearly would not be considered a traditional vocal.
No,
right?
I don't want it to be.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what makes Mean Motor Scooter, right? That's one of the ingredients. But if you would have told a lot of other people, like, this is how I want to sing, there would have been a lot of bandmates that'd be like, no, I don't want to do this with you. Like,
yeah, well,
you know what I'm saying? Because I mean, like some of the stuff where you're just doing la 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 la, people would be like, Sammy. But when it's dialed in as Mean Motor Scooter, you're like, perfect.
Yeah,
perfect. But I can imagine like in rehearsal rooms where those hard sells sometimes are like, hey, I got this one. Let me show this to you.
No, I think everybody more or less was on the same page. We would just play it. Like I would say, oh, I've got a new song, and then we'd play it, or I'd show them the guitar parts, and they'd just come in, and I'd do the vocals. And if they didn't like the song, we wouldn't do it. If they did, we would keep it. And most of the time they did.
So do you remember the first kind of when you first decided like at home to start belting out some tunes with your voice and deciding like, I think I like it this way?
I think it was a mixture of playing those older venues with, small, the PA's kind of been used for the past 20 years kind of thing. And I just couldn't hear myself because the guitars are up so loud. So I'm like,
was this already with Mean Motor Scooter?
Yeah, okay, like the first EP. And I'm like, I got to belt it out to be as loud vocally as I can so I can hear myself. And that was kind of how I found the style of what the vocal should be, and then record it after that.
So before you're thinking, I've got to get over this PA issue, were you singing it softer, lighter?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. A little bit. I mean, there was still growling and, a lot of raspy vocals, but it wasn't so abrasive and aggressive until...
Like it wasn't coming from the gut yet.
Yeah, but when we get up there and I'm like, I have to put on a good show. I have to make sure that when people walk away from here after they've seen us, that there's something to remember, like they felt something. So and in order to do that, I had to be able to hear myself. And
it's interesting, man, because that's such a crucial part for so many bands that it's hard to understand. Like you can't do it at an 8.
Yeah.
It's got to be at a 10. Whatever your version of 10 is.
No, yeah, absolutely.
It's got to be there. If you're a whisper, quiet singer, that's fine, but your performance has got to be...
Yeah, it's all got to line up.
But I think, it's so... I mean, even in your band, when you realize the PA kind of sucks, I need to get louder, it's still vulnerable to think, I got to be louder, I guess, right? Because what if it's really horrible? What if you find out that's where your voice cracks?
There was no... At that point, it's like you just got to jump in, because it's like if it sucks, but I'm not going to not try everything that I can to make it not suck.
Had you been in bands before, Mean Motor Scooter?
Yeah, I did an acoustic project, actually, because I was just writing by myself. So I was kind of a one-man thing. I mean, I
have
had
so
Chase
many
on drums sometimes.
Inaccurate pictures going through my head of your acoustic album. Like Sammy Kidd does Dashboard Confessionals.
No, I mean, it was poppy, but later I was like, man, I really want to get back to my roots of like what made me fall in love with music in the first place. And so I called up the old drummer. I was like, hey, man, this is what I want to do. I know that that's your thing too. I know you really love that. So let's get together and start playing open mics. And it just kind of snowballed from there.
Yeah, that's cool. Everybody, I think, has... Maybe that's one of the issues with social media is even though you're together, you're a little isolated.
Yeah.
Because that was my music experience, right? Like when I was first playing guitar and really didn't know what I was doing, I'm at the time I'm like 15 years old, right? and we like snuck out of the house to go to somebody's party. Like we were in a small town, so it was like field parties. I don't know where you're from. Where are you from around here originally?
I was born in Cleburne. And
okay.
went to school in Fort Worth.
Okay, gotcha. So you know small towns then.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So field parties, bonfires. You're hanging out with the older kids who bought you beer, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then this girl that I thought was like super cool at the time, and she was like either my grade or right a grade below or something. I can't remember. She was like, "Oh, you play guitar?" And I was, you're trying to be cool, right? You're like, "Yeah, I play guitar," And she's like, "Yeah, my stepbrother, he's trying to learn how to play bass. Maybe y'all can like hang out and get, whatever." Because in those small towns, it's like nobody really plays instruments.
Yeah, if there's a band in that small town, everybody in that small town knows that band.
So he was the bass player. And we were both shitty. We were both so bad. And it was just, I remember going over to his house all the time, and we were just trying to pick up anything we could play like with power chords or something.
Yeah. That's perfect.
Yeah, it was like Green Day, Nirvana, anything.
Yes.
And just finally like the excitement of like, wow, we're playing a song at the same time.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Oh, your sound matches my sound, and this is so cool. And you're like showing friends who are like, cool.
You almost sound like a band.
Yeah, and then somehow through like a friend of a friend, we found somebody that played drums, and that was like the beginning of like, oh wow, we get to like try to write songs now.
Yeah.
It went from covers to like trying to write horrible songs, and
yes.
But it's very much of like, you got to have that person who just happens to be around. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's some of it, is there's a little bit of being isolated. Like, even though you see these people playing, maybe there's not a lot of reaching out and just going, do you want to like come over and jam a little?
Too.
Which you'd think it'd make it easier.
Yeah, you would.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I can remember doing exactly that. I remember going to Ridgely Theater when they did open mics, and you had to pay like $2 or $3 just to get on the list.
Uh-huh.
And we'd go upstairs and not even have a set rehearse and just make noise and jump around. And it was so much fun.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't know if it's that I don't see that anymore, or if I'm just not going out to...
I definitely don't see the energy put into open mics like it used to.
Yeah.
Because I think it's a thankless job. Yeah. The people who put on these open mics and host them, it's a shit job.
Yeah.
But it's so important to the ecosystem of music in your area you need that person. And like, I just had this guy on here, Mike Tuck. He's a country guitar player, and he's trying to do like this country jam in Plano at this place called Levin Warren, Texas. And it's a music venue that's a restaurant. It's always been there, and they have like real big bands roll through. And so he just comes in on like a Tuesday night, and it's like a jam thing. Like, you can just, if you're a country player or you're aspiring to be, you can come up if you're a singer, and they'll just throw you on stage and it's like, come play.
Wow, that's awesome.
And they're all good enough. You can just say like, yeah, it's these notes, and they know how to play and find it. And I think that's what we're missing, is people to just care and go like, I know I'm not going to make money on it, but it's important.
Yeah.
It's important, because our first shows, I mean, we had no business playing those shows. It was horrific. And we didn't understand what was important to a venue, because we were just young.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. It never crossed our mind that these people are trying to make money and survive. Like, that they have rent and electricity.
The concept of money in general was just...
I remember we thought we were going to impress them, because we thought at the time, you make a band, you play as many shows as possible, and you try to build a fan base, right? Because we were so young. This was like, people were like, there's this thing called MySpace that's taking off. Like, it was in those days, right?
Yes.
They're like, it's going to change everything. And we were like, no, that's never going to catch on. And because we would burn CDs of our music to try to promote with. That's what we would do, right? And I remember we thought we were going to impress the venue with like our hustle. We were maybe like the second or third band on this packed out list that they used to do, like, 8-10 bands on a night. And they were like, where are you guys going? We're like, oh, we booked 2 shows tonight. So we left the one venue to go play another venue, and they're like, what the fuck? Like, you're supposed to be promoting
one night.
You're supposed to be promoting your shows and all this, we're just like, what? We're working hard. Like, this is the grind.
People would just show up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We brought our fan. He's here.
Our friends are here.
Yeah. And then now in hindsight, you're like, oh yeah, it probably would have been good just to do one show as best you could. And we thought like, oh, this venue will let us play there like every month if we want to.
Yeah.
And it's like, they don't want you to fucking play here every month.
Yeah, I remember being told like you need at least 10 people here if you want to play here again. It's like, oh, okay.
Did y'all? You guys have been around. I know the door is closed now, but I'm sure y'all played shows there somewhere.
Oh
right?
man, I did my earlier projects,
Okay.
but I remember going to shows there and just being floored because it was so packed. I mean, no one's drinking. We're all young kids, so
there were a couple locations. Do you remember which location you'd gone to?
Yeah, it was the one in Cowtown. They had...
That's right. There was a Fort Worth door.
Yeah.
I never made it to that one.
That one was fun. It was packed out. People would go to the pizza place.
That's right, because it was
walk the
Dallas,
grounds.
Fort Worth, and Plano at one point.
Yeah.
That's right.
And it was fun. They even had like another room that they set up for like acoustic or, 2-piece bands, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I started cutting my teeth and figuring out what sucked,
Yeah.
what didn't work, and what made a band good.
Yeah. The Dallas one, that was the similar experience. They had 3 rooms. So they had a massive one that like pretty big bands were playing on. Mm-hmm. And then you walk through to like a medium stage, and that's what we were aspiring to get on. Like maybe we can get to the medium stage.
Yeah.
Because then there was like a really shitty room over to this other side, and that's where you started.
Yeah.
And we were working on it. We thought we were getting pretty good, and we booked a show. And when we tried to book another one, they talked to us about attendance, and that was like our first like, oh, you need us, you need us to bring people.
Yeah.
And it didn't dawn on me afterwards how difficult that business would have been, because the Dallas door at the time was a lot of young people, like non-alcohol buying people.
Yeah.
And so now you're thinking, how did they ever keep the doors open when they weren't selling booze to these kids?
I mean,
Just like French fries and
Zorkost
sodas.
did it, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. And then when they changed locations, I was in a different band, and we had our act more together, and we understood these things. We were older. They were talking about like 10 years difference, And we were trying to be clever because we had put out an album, and we were trying to do like release shows in 3 different cities to try to really get this thing out here. And so we got that sweet spot between like the opener and the headliner where everybody's just the right amount of drunk, nobody's ready to go home. And we would find headliners that had a bigger draw than us to try to get it as much as we could, because we did this thing where if you bought a ticket, CDs were still a thing. If you bought a ticket, you got the album.
Oh, perfect.
So we were just trying to move like 600 albums in a couple weekends.
Yeah.
And so when we set up the show, I remember the booker at the time emailed us back and was like, "Hey, so and so put you on the bill. Last time you brought 4 people. Could you please bring more than 4 people?" And that was just the entire email. And it was like, fuck.
Yeah.
And I was like, God, man, it's such a hard game,
Yeah. I mean, getting your friends to come out and see your band, especially when they've already come out to one of your shows, and maybe like they were one of 5 people, and none of them know each other. So it's hard getting started.
Yeah, but you guys actually have fans.
Yeah, well, that took some time. I think just playing enough around town and kind of knowing, having a jumping off point, like knowing the venues and the people that ran the venues and some of the other bands around town, and then just slowly kind of building up from there.
Yeah. I was at Joe's studio one time with him, and there was a younger band in there recording some stuff, right? In a band in y'all's lane. And I think they're probably like 19 and 20. No, actually they're younger than that. They were still in high school.
Oh, wow.
High school kids. But the band was like sounding really good. I'll tell you afterwards, because I don't know if they want me to tell you the story. But they were talking, like Joe's just talking to them about music and stuff, right? They'd been recording. I mean, they'd been there for hours at this point. And then somehow Mean Motor Scooter comes up. And I don't remember if like they were like, "Have you heard of this band Mean Motor Scooter?" Like to Joe.
Oh.
And then either him or Rebecca, when she was working there, somebody was like, actually, he's in the... And it was a literal pause. Like it hit them, and they were like, "You're in Mean Motor Scooter?" And they're like, "Yeah." They're like, "I fucking love that band." And like, I got to watch this really beautiful moment of someone not realizing they were working with a band that they really liked.
Yeah, that's happened a few times with us.
Like you have real fans. It's not just your friends.
Yeah, and it's a wake up too. Like, oh wow, we're reaching people outside of our little circle, and that was really what keeps us going too, because we're like, oh, people are actually listening to this. That's cool.
Yeah.
So that was a huge inspiration for us.
It's weird to think you have a fan though, right? Or a fan. You have fans, I mean.
Yeah, I'm getting more used to it now because we, go out to shows and I'll see a lot of new faces, and I love your music. Take
and you're
the
like,
set list,
and you're
sign
like,
the set
give me
list.
some room, kid. Give me some
No,
room.
no.
No eye contact.
I always try to talk to him, and if especially we played the Dickies skate park opening thing in Fort Worth.
Oh, right, yeah.
And this young kid came up to me. He was probably like 15. He was like, I started playing the guitar because I love your band. I've been playing for 6 months now. I'm going to start a band. I'm like, yes.
Hell yeah.
That is what I like to hear.
So what we're talking about is happening then. We're just not seeing it as often.
Yeah, I mean, it's happening now. And even like going state to state, like we've only toured the West Coast like two times. But even going out there the last time and having these young kids who couldn't even get in the venue, one of them we made our merch guy so that he could get in.
Oh, wow.
And he sat outside and waited for us to get there. And I mean, that is cool. I mean, even though the place wasn't packed because we're still touring through there, the fact that anybody showed up for us is...
Well, and more importantly, that kid, I think people underestimate that experience that kid had.
Yeah.
Like, he's going to go back to school or whatever, and he's going to be like, people are going to be like, what'd you do this weekend? He's like, fucking let me tell you, man. Let me tell you what I did for this rock and roll band,
Yeah.
And that's going to be like a lifetime core memory now.
Yeah, I hope so.
It will be. It will be. Maybe that's the key then. Maybe, when you guys were going on tour, because things have changed so much, about how you promote music. Do you feel like tour is just something that you love doing? Do you feel like it still promotes your band the way it used to, or is it a different tool? For instance, like in comedy, people used to work their whole career to get a comedy special.
Yeah.
Now it's flipped. Now you get good enough to record your own comedy special. Maybe somebody will release it for you. Maybe you just put it out on YouTube. And then that, you're hoping, builds you up enough of a fan base to now sell tickets to your shows.
Oh,
it's kind of reversed totally.
That's interesting.
How do you feel like touring is for a musician now?
It really boils down to how you do it, I guess. Our first tour, which we would have never gone on tour had we not had the opportunity to tour with a band that had already, gotten their bearings and been through the West Coast a bunch of times and had a real following throughout the country. So then it was like we could open for them, and we made a lot of fans that way. So then when we went back through by ourselves, we had a little bit of a presence there, someplace to start. So now it's just a matter of keep going back and keep doing it to keep that alive. Because, I mean, if you go once, but you don't put anything out or you don't come back, people forget. There's other bands, there's other stuff going on. They have lives of their own. So you kind of just have to keep coming through and keep reminding everybody why they like your music, why they like your band.
I've talked to several bands here locally that feel like touring is such a waste of time now because of social media, because of Spotify, Bandcamp, all these things.
It can feel that way.
But I feel like that's the, dagger that's kind of sealing their fate, that they don't realize that
you got to get out of
kind of the core
zone.
Of music is the live experience.
Even if you're only playing for 5-6 people, you'd be surprised how much of an impact that has on those people. Because I know it's great when it's packed and there's a magical moment, but there's plenty of shows I've been to where I was, one of the only people there, and it was a show that changed my life.
Even that show at Tulips that we were talking about, that we were still up front at the stage, and they were still giving 110%. And we left out of there going, that was an incredible show. We're bigger fans than we were. And we already liked it,
Exactly.
Because it was still like, you could tell there was maybe a look that they kind of gave each other about the thin crowd. But it's like once they got about 15 seconds into the song, it's like, no, we enjoy doing this. So let's do it, right? And then the other show that really was like that. Did you ever hear the band Authority Zero back in the day?
No.
Anyway, they had one album that was just epic. It was just and it even had they still had a radio hit somehow.
Oh, nice.
And it is like an aggressive album. You might actually like some off the first one. I'll send it to you later because there were some surf elements in it, but it was definitely like that kind of post punk, era where they didn't get into anything emo. It was still very like punk rock.
Oh, gotcha.
But the singer had like this big booming voice. It wasn't like a growly voice, it was a big booming voice. And they had this mix, like a little bit of it I think most of the band members were Hispanic, and then they're from New Mexico.
Oh, cool.
So, or is Mesa in New Mexico? Oh shoot, it was either Mexico or Arizona. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah.
And they so there was always like a little bit of that blend in there too. So it was like punk rocky, a little surfy, but then there'd be like a tiny little Latin element with some ska here and there.
Oh, wow.
But it was never like, it wasn't like that upbeat, like ha 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 ska.
Right.
It was like, and it was fast.
Like punk ska.
Yeah, it was fast. It was aggressive. And then somehow they turned one of their kind of ska Latin sounding songs into a radio hit. That's how we heard of them.
Wow.
I couldn't believe they had, it was like when you could still really have a radio hit that mattered, and then you sell CDs. So they're coming through to Trees in Deep Ellum. Same thing. We show up early. I think I was 18, or like I just maybe graduated high school, because it was my wife. We're dating at the time, and then her friend and a friend I was like trying to set her up with. So it was like a double date to this concert. We show up. They're the headliners. There's literally 20 people, 25 people at Trees, and there's probably 6 bands on this bill. It's like a tour. It's like a big tour.
Yeah.
And all of the bands were just folding it in. They were just pissed.
It's hard not to be deterred by that. And
they're
just
making
discouraged.
smart ass comments.
Yeah.
And there's this band who's still not around anymore, called the Cougars, and the lead singer was just like ripping on the city the whole time. And it's like, we still paid to be here.
Yeah.
We still are excited about this.
Man.
Then the headlining band, Authority Zero, comes up, and it was like, I don't give a fuck. Like, he was doing that old school, like, foot on the speaker, microphone right in front of the crowd. Like, he was in the crowd. There's only 20 people, and he's like throwing the mic in your face. Like,
that's how you gotta be.
I mean, he's literally like, he was the guy who's like going from that pose to like jumping as high as he can in the air back to the drum kit and all this, and they're sweating on stage, giving it all. And I remember us looking, again, me and my wife just talking about like, that's how fucking concerts go.
Yes.
Like, there are concerts that are packed out that never had that energy.
Yeah.
And they had a couple good albums after that, but they never found that raw energy again like that first one. But if they ever roll through town, it's like, yeah, I'll come to that show.
Nice.
Just out of respect for that one show. I'm coming, and I'm going to love it.
Yeah.
Because it's like, that's real love of music, you know?
Absolutely.
I think I got like a guitar pick and some signed stuff from that show back then. And it was like, because they took the time to talk to everybody. And it's like that core moment. It's like that was a big part of like, I love music forever still. Like, no matter what, I love music. This is important,
Yes.
So that's why I argue, to those bands. It's like, I think you need to get on the road more.
Yeah.
And kind of like embrace the shittiness of those shows.
You do. Absolutely. I think that's a big part of it. And getting outside of your comfort zone, because you build your audience in your town. But if you really want to grow, you have to do that in a lot of towns all over the country. And it's going to take some starting over. And you're never too big for a venue or for a show or for the fans that showed up for your show. You always want them to walk away from it feeling like they would come back.
You almost wish there were more like house party tours.
Sure.
Right?
Sometimes that
you wish there was a circuit of just house parties where they all got together and were like, send the bands to these 5 spots.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes the tour is better that way, just for small 50, 100 cap venues or house shows. And you'll sell merch, and they'll let you crash on the couch and, save money from a hotel that night or whatever. But sometimes that's the best thing to do.
When you were going out of town for the first time, and hitting these stages and not knowing what to think, was it more excitement? Was it nervousness?
Oh.
What was the feeling when you're like, okay, we're going to take it on the road?
Well, I mean, we'd been to like Oklahoma and things like that, but the first time we ever like flew out to Phoenix or like drove to Memphis, it was really exciting. I was very, very excited. But also pretty nervous. I mean, it's different, especially that first show of the tour.
You still remember that first show, don't you?
Yeah, it's just like breaking the ice and meeting all the bands that you're playing with and, getting the tour manager to like you and things like that. You don't know what's going to happen. Maybe they'll hate us. Maybe we're not for them. But when it all starts to kind of come together and you're friends and everybody loves each other's bands and you're supporting each other, that's a fun tour.
Yeah. Imagine if it went the other way. You get up there and people just start leaving.
Oh man, that would not be good.
And you're like, this is day one.
Things. Yeah.
Yeah, but when you fly out, there's no going back. That was the
Yeah.
thing about when you said you had been to Oklahoma. It's like, yeah, but that's just a short drive back home if
Exactly.
it doesn't work out.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how to convince people that that's really important, that maybe the best way to grow here is to get out of here a little bit.
No, it is. It's the only way to really get past, because you're going to hit a ceiling at some point, and the only way to move past that is just get out of your comfort zone, get out of the area, and you might learn something about your taste or what you like, or you might be inspired by something you wouldn't think you'd be inspired by because you started playing with these guys or you saw what these other guys had to offer, and it just affects everything that you're doing.
You ever thought about, like taking the baton, so to speak, now that you guys are veterans in the scene and doing the open mics we're talking about, or maybe trying to book things for bands, like maybe trying to fill that gap.
A lot of bands are doing that now, which I really appreciate, like bands that we used to play with. But me, I did that Brainhole Fest once. And
what was the Brainhole Fest?
It was a 3-day festival with 10 bands each day. It was at Lola's before they got the trailer park in the back and everything. But it was so much work.
What were you doing with it?
It was just a festival in summertime to get all the bands together to just...
No, I mean, like, what were your obligations with it?
Oh, I like made it. It was...
Oh, it was your whole festival?
Yeah.
Oh, my God. So that's a huge undertaking.
Yeah, it was a lot of work, and it was so stressful, and I just don't think I want to do it again.
What made you want to do it that first time?
A lot of kids were starting at festivals. Like there was a festival in Denton that we played, and I was like, oh, this is cool. And I'm meeting a lot of new people, and I'm meeting a lot of bands, and it's a cool way to get everybody together. Mm-hmm. So I thought, let me give it a shot. And it was fun, and I'm glad we did it, but I don't want to do it again.
Really? What do you think was the worst part that would make you not do it?
Just the stress of like, am I going to be able to get all these guys paid? Are enough people going to show up? Did I promote this stuff? And I went like to Star Telegram. I did a bunch of podcasts. I talked to everybody. I extended my reach in all the ways that I knew how. Mm-hmm. And it was enough to cover all the costs and to get everybody paid and to where everybody had a good time and they had fun.
Were you like begging for sponsorships as well? Did you get any of those?
I had a friend who had just started a liquor company, and Lola's was telling me that we needed a sponsor, and he said he would sponsor it, but then there was all these issues.
It's always weird, right?
Yeah, it's always like this legal stuff, and it's not as easy as just like friend bringing all the booze to this place.
Yeah.
So it just got to be...
And it always feels like you need the money, but it always feels a little icky when you start getting into that zone of...
I didn't want to go out to people.
When you start hanging up posters of something all over the venue, it's like it's necessary at times, but also it's like, can we have the cool sponsors we really want?
Right.
But you still enjoyed it though.
Yeah, no, it was a blast. I'm glad we did it.
How long ago was that?
This would have been 2017.
So look, you've had enough time between that one. You've healed your wounds. You're smarter.
Yeah.
You're stronger. You could do some more of that.
Yeah, I could.
You've learned some lessons now, right?
Yeah.
I want to do those things so badly. Of I don't know, just events.
Yeah.
I don't care if we make money. I just want to, like you said, pay the bands, not ruin anything, and then hopefully people will talk about like, oh, that was the moment I met these people and we did this collaboration and did those things,
Yeah.
But I can't decide how I would like to do it,
Yeah.
I thought I'd kicked around the idea of doing like a garage sale where people just show up with
that's cool.
all their merch. Any band welcome, set up a bunch of merch tables where maybe it's a way they can just like rub elbows a little bit. And but then I thought, is it going to be just a bunch of bands sitting around talking, like how does that go?
Yeah, I mean, you'd want to have some live music going, so...
And now that's drifting into festival territory, though.
Yeah.
Right? So that's why I need you to do this.
Oh, man.
Do you remember the best part of that festival, though? You had to have a moment where you're like, this is incredible. I'm happy I did this. Was there anything that stood out?
Just getting the bands that we wanted to play with, that we hadn't had a lot of opportunities to play with, to show up and play. That was cool. I liked getting the T-shirts made. Just the community getting together in general was nice. I think the last day of the festival was on a Sunday, and that was the best day for the whole thing because it kind of boiled down to that last show.
Yeah.
But it was fun. It was just a huge headache.
I can imagine. Yeah. Well, like, artists aren't the easiest to deal with.
That too. Yeah. And you try not to take things personally, but it's hard sometimes.
Yeah. Just with this podcast, when people show up on time, I'm like, awesome. Right. And then if somehow like a comic or a musician shows up 10 minutes early, I'm like, who are you? This isn't what happens.
Right.
Usually I brace myself for the running 10 minutes late. And it's like, yeah, I know. You're on musician time. I get it. I think about those things a lot, man. I feel like I was in the heyday of really fun festivals here around Dallas.
Yeah.
There were always like, I think the craft beer thing was like just taking off a little bit. And so there was always like a brew fest mixed with a concert series or something. And it was just packed out all the time.
Yeah.
And I think I'm just searching for that excitement again. I feel like I have it, but then I talk to people, I'll talk to people at work or something like, what's the last concert you went to? And they're like, I don't know. Like, what? And I don't know where to find it. You know what one of the most crushing moments for me is Brave Little Hal we made a vinyl record that was like a little one-off thing. It doesn't exist digitally. It's just a vinyl record. And, so you're reaching out to all these people to try to get promotion for it, right? And I remember reaching out I got the information for the music editor of D Magazine at the time.
Oh, cool.
We recorded it at White Rock Lake. It's a Dallas-Fort Worth band. I thought, there's a story here, right? There's something here. Mm-hmm. And I never see them do any major music stories or anything. So I was like, maybe this will be exciting. Maybe they're looking for, content. And
sure.
I reached out and I was like, hey, I'd love to just send you a record. It's a vinyl record, and told them the story. I was like, and if you enjoy it, we would, love you to consider it for some type of review or even just like a social media post or something. And if not, no worries, just pass the record along to somebody who might enjoy it. And the response wasn't negative or positive. The music editor at that time just goes, oh yeah, I don't have a record player.
What?
And I was like, you're the music editor. Who hired
That's
you?
insane.
Who hired you?
Yeah, no kidding.
And I'm
Go
sure
buy a record player.
Yeah, and it's like, why would that ever be your response when you're the music editor for a major publication?
Yeah.
Like, and that's when I realized, like, maybe we're losing a little bit of those, like those tent poles that kind of help prop some of this stuff up. Is it's harder to find, those people who are just kind of nutty and care about it and want to write stories and seek it out,
I think that'll always be a thing. I think we're just in a weird transition right now. And I think once maybe it will take there being only a couple venues left, kind of like where we're at now, before some bands get together and start playing house shows and bring the audience back to wherever. And I don't know. I think maybe sometimes it takes missing something to really appreciate it. So I don't know. I think we're just in a weird spot right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Well, what makes you want to put out music when you're in a weird spot like this?
I mean, to get out on the road, really.
So that's the goal? You guys are going to take it back out?
Yeah. We're going to tour again in September.
Where are you going this time?
Same spots, just up the coast and back.
West Coast?
Yeah.
Okay.
Eventually we'll make it to the East Coast, but...
What makes you choose the West Coast? Just because y'all know people out there?
Yeah, I mean, we've already been out there, and so I just want to kind of saturate as much as we can and get comfortable, and then when I finally feel like we're getting comfortable, go someplace else.
I feel like you guys should hit up, after you do the West Coast thing, you described your music earlier in the way that I've always heard it, which is like there's a lot of angst with it. I keep talking about comedy, but there's just a lot of crossover with it. You familiar with Bill Burr?
Yeah.
He is an angry comic.
Yeah.
And I feel like he gets a lot of the rage that I'll feel sometimes and puts it out so, in such a great way where I'm like, okay, yeah, that's silly and stupid, but it was validating to hear him. Like, he also gets upset about that.
Yeah.
And that's how I've always felt about y'all's music when it comes to, kind of the angst, the more depressive side of things, where you're like, I mean, I still love Slacker so much. To me, that song is such. I was like, when I heard it, I was like, I feel this way sometimes. Like, you know what I mean?
Yes.
And that's what music should be about, right?
Yeah.
Like, I shouldn't need you to tell me what it means to you, as long as it means something to me, right?
That's all that matters.
So saying that, I feel like you got to get out to these Midwest towns, where these people don't get a lot of music, probably filled with a lot of angst, because it's really hard in some of these areas. You're from a small town.
Yeah.
It's hard, right?
Yeah.
I feel like you figure out a way to set up your house shows out there. Reach out to...
That's a great idea.
Find the younger bands in those areas who would be like, this band wants to come through and do something, and just be like, we want to come there. Like, I think you would, at the very least, have people just going nuts at your shows.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Like, we used to play this record store in Waco, or like I hear friends tell me about spots in East Texas that I'd never think to play.
Mm-hmm.
Just these small areas with plenty of people that love music, love live shows. They just don't have the opportunity to go to them because they're in a small place.
The type of person who feels overlooked, I think, is going to really vibe with a lot of what you, well, and just what your music is about in a lot of ways. I think they're going to really resonate with that.
Yeah, you're probably right.
You know, because, you know, when I talk to you, it's like you're a pleasant person. And then when I hear your lyrics, it's like, is he okay? And I know you're fine. I know you're fine. But, you know, I feel like those people are your people.
Yeah, for sure.
And they would just eat that shit up. They would love it. Love it.
I think you're right.
And you just got to go, what's the big city? Okay, great. What's the town that nobody cares about next to that city?
Yeah.
You know, I don't know what you'd call it. You need a good name for that.
Yeah.
How many songs are on the new album?
There's 13 tracks.
13. Yeah, you guys really stretched your legs on this one.
Yeah.
What was it like having this is the first time y'all had a second guitarist, right?
Yes.
How did you like that?
I liked it fine. I still got to write the parts. So that was a big part of it, I think, because when we're finding a fourth member to bring in, everybody has their own style and their own take on everything, but I had a very specific idea of how I wanted it to sound. So I wrote the parts first and then found the guitar player, and it worked better that way, I think, at least just for this record.
Did you approach them about basically what you just said to me? Like, I wrote these parts and I need someone to play it. Or how did that go down?
So we've been playing with Phantom Mellow for a long time, over the past couple years, and they were going through some transitions with their members, and we needed another guitar player, so I asked Will if he wanted to play. And since I was already kind of leaning a different direction artistically and musically for this record, and it was kind of up his alley, I thought, and I kind of had him in mind, or his band in mind, when working on some of this stuff, because we had planned to go on tour together and this kind of thing. So I thought, well, he would be a good fit. So I just asked him if he wanted to do it. And he's so busy, and he's working, 2 bands now and full-time job, and travels a lot. So I think it just worked out easier to do it that way.
Wait, so is he the other guitarist?
Yeah.
Oh, I never picked up on that. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, that works out perfectly then.
Yeah. It just kind of fit together and made sense.
Yeah. They did just go through a similar lineup change, right?
Yeah, they've been switching some members around to kind of find their space. So
yeah, it's weird how much music is just a real nebulous thing sometimes about your lineup, and then it kind of just works.
Yeah, if it works, then
and just the thought of staying the same band, it's never realistic anyway, right?
No,
because even if it's the same members, the band just always changes.
Yeah,
the sound.
People's tastes change. How they see themselves, what they like about music. It doesn't change entirely, but it does change a little bit.
What made you want to go ahead and get another guitarist rather than just being the 3-piece like y'all were?
Well, this record just didn't sound finished to me. I was like, I love the songs, I love the parts, but I need something else here that's missing. So I pulled out a guitar and started working on some parts, and just song by song by song found, this is what it needs. And it worked out. Did
you think about just recording both parts?
That wasn't the plan, but it ended up being that way. like we recorded all the songs, and then as we're mixing, went through each one and tried to decide what it needs. It's like, needs a lead guitar, needs a lead guitar,
Gotcha.
needs a lead guitar. So that just ended up being what we needed.
So y'all two are going to go on a tour together now, and then
Yeah.
man, so he's going to have a lot of work.
Yeah.
That's exciting. So does he have to now go through your old catalog? Like, how deep of a set list do you think you're going to go through?
We've just been playing the new songs, so he's just learned those.
Yeah. Okay, so not too bad.
Yeah. Didn't want to overload him.
Yeah, and if the moment hits where you're going to play an old one, you're like, just get off the stage for a second. We'll call you. We'll call you back up.
Yeah, I mean, there's like a couple songs here and there where we did have a lead guitar, like on Sam the Homo Sapien, which we get asked to play sometimes, but we haven't tried to pull that off yet, but I'm sure we will at some point.
Yeah, now y'all can just do fun, like, who knows what having this other member in there is going to do when you're on tour or playing. It's like you're going to have some moments where it's like, maybe we just do a little bit of this between these songs or something, and it starts branching into something fun, you know. That's really exciting. Phantom L is another one that you have your people that you really hope good things for.
Yeah.
Because I got to work with them a little bit, super cool. And again, they've got their own sound, which is so important to me. It's like, I don't need you to sound any certain way. I just want you to sound your way.
Right.
You know, and he seemed to have found a really good mix with that. I haven't watched anything with the new lineup, though. I guess I need to go check out a show.
Yeah, they've been playing some good shows. I caught a few of them, not the last two, but like the 3 before that. And they're playing with some cool younger bands, which was inspiring for me just to get out and hear some new music, some new takes on analog style music.
Yeah. How do you think, because you keep mentioning the younger bands, and it's like, okay, so I'm just missing them. I'm just not seeing them.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
how the fuck
maybe.
are we going to see them? Where do I need to be going?
Man, I guess it's just Dallas. I mean, there's a lot of going on in Dallas. It just depends on the show. I don't know. Phantom L has been playing a lot of shows with them. We're trying to, like I mentioned, Labels was a lot of fun. We're playing with Remy Riley. They're newer. Just getting out there, I guess.
Yeah. So I'm just going to have
your hands dirty.
now that I have a wife and a 4-year-old, I'm just going to have to go, hey, I need to go to this 10:30 show.
Yeah.
One of the bands that I know, they were like, hey, do you think you could, they were talking to me about finding a way to basically become a booker for like a certain style show. They're like, do you think you could put on some like 4 p.m. shows? And I was like, I mean, maybe, but I also kind of don't want to. Like,
yeah, that's a tough one. I think the setting of the place, like, it matters.
There's something about being out at a venue later
Yeah.
at nighttime when it's supposed to be like, you're not supposed to be out there already.
Right.
Like, you need it to feel a little like gritty and weird.
Yeah.
Right?
Out of your zone, yeah.
There's a reason these places end up in like Deep Ellum.
Yeah.
It needs to feel a little like, would I get robbed here tonight?
Yeah. It adds to the excitement.
Yeah, you take your wallet, you move it to your front pocket.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you think is like the goal with your new album? What do you hope happens with it, other than just, people listening to it?
Yeah, I just hope that we're inspiring people in our hometown and to, make bands, and I hope that it leads us to whatever the next thing is.
Yeah, but do you ever want to? Do you have goals of like, I want to get to these size venues or these size tours?
Oh,
Or do you
sure.
think about that, about how you get there?
Yeah, I think it's just a matter of because when the pandemic hit, I mean, we were playing shows every weekend. We had a bunch of big festivals lined up. We had everything, the ball was rolling, and all of a sudden everything got canceled. And so it just kind of put us in a weird spot. And life happens, things happen. And so just trying to get back to that spot of touring regularly and playing shows as often as we can.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is really when opportunities start to come in like that. Like the thing with Dirty Water, that was just a random Thursday night show in Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
And we had no idea who this band was, and we made lifelong friends and got to go on tour and it opened up a lot of doors for us. So I think It's just a matter of getting out there enough to where the odds are in your favor and the right person shows up, or group of people or whoever, somebody to introduce you to the right group of people. And it starts to open up all these new opportunities for, festivals or a tour, a Europe tour or something.
So it's still really just getting out there and playing.
Yeah.
Do you find the festivals versus going on tour with someone, do you find one to be a little more advantageous to the other?
I guess it depends on the tour or the festival, but I'm always going to prefer to be on the road, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But a good festival is a lot of fun too.
I feel like y'all would kill at a festival.
Yeah.
Because I feel like you could blindside quite a few people when you come out and then just be
Yeah.
go, what is this? I need to watch this immediately.
Definitely.
Yeah. I've always, I've wondered how you make it now because, and when I say make it, right, everybody's got a different version of that.
Sure, yeah.
But I assume the version that most people want is I would like to make enough money to do music full time and not worry about it.
Yeah.
And just worry about creating. And now I think, what is that path? Because even labels struggle.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, what is the purpose of a label even these days? It's kind of hard to understand what they can do that is helpful, but also is beneficial to them.
Right.
And, you hear about these, it's like you're going to go on tour and the label wants this percentage of your merch. And it's like, okay, well, did you, what did you do though? Because I go back and forth on, do I want a world of music where you have labels that in a sense are gatekeepers?
Yeah.
But it's also a nice curation of something that you can go like, this label's got great shit. And I like this label.
Exactly.
Because if it's a good label, it's like, aren't they throwing you on shows? Aren't they putting you in the right positions?
They should be.
But I think so many labels now are just like, we paid for your recording. Good luck.
Yeah. I mean, their bottom line is always going to be selling records, but they're going to sell more records the more they have a band that really puts on a good show. And
But do you think you'd want a label at this point, or are y'all on one right now?
No, we're not. It's self-released. We're not worried about it because if we find the right people that can do for us what we need, like, we still have our contacts for booking tours here in the country, but if we want to book something in Europe, or if we want to get out of our area and go, I don't know, somewhere we haven't been before, we need somebody who books shows in Europe or somebody who books shows on the East Coast or that kind of thing. So I think getting in touch with the right label that can get us in touch with the right tour manager or the right booking agent, that kind of thing is great, but it has to be the right people that really love you and want to, see you do well.
You know what I really think it is? I think we need a whole group of people who want to make very bad business decisions.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They need to go like,
take some risks.
it probably won't make any money. But
Yeah.
it's really cool.
Yeah.
Right? And then it ends up accidentally being a great business.
Yeah.
Right? Like the way, I'm trying to think of a bigger name, like Jack White. The way he took a stab at vinyl records and made production plants and now all these bands and kind of helped, more people did it than just him, obviously, but he had a big part of like resurfacing that as like, this is a format that's really cool and we should always kind of keep it around and preserve it. And then when you think of Third Man Records and all the things, it's like they make a bunch of stuff that there's no way it could make money.
Yeah.
They just want it to exist.
Yeah. And I think that's a lot with most labels, unless it's like, I don't know, Universal or something. Like they have maybe like one band on the roster that's actually making them money and keeping them afloat out of like 10 bands that are active and doing stuff.
Yeah. So if a label did approach you, what would be the key points that would make you go, yeah, we'll work together? Like what would someone present to you where you'd be like, that works?
I think if they had a good distribution deal for us and the right contacts for us to play bigger shows outside of where we're normally playing them, that would be enough for me. Just like not having, because so many bands want to put out a vinyl, but it's expensive, or they want to be associated with a label, but they don't understand the label's not doing anything for you. They're making you pay for your own vinyls, or they're not booking you any shows. They're not helping you, so you don't need them. But when you get in touch with somebody who can get your vinyl out and get you printed copies, you just have to pay the cost for manufacturing, I don't know, like $5-10 or whatever it is. And then you get all the profits from the ones you sell. And obviously they're going to keep most of them and sell them from their store and that kind of thing. But then you're able to make some merch sales and make profits. And then you can get in touch with some people that can put you on some shows where you really can shine and people can appreciate what you're doing and you meet some new people.
Yeah, it feels like the labels that want to exist right now are struggling, that it's all kind of changed.
Yeah.
You know, and they're trying to use this old formula that just doesn't work.
Yeah.
And like you said, the keys kind of, do you have the contacts to put us on the road?
Exactly.
Can we get out there and do this? And because really, I mean, if you're a label, in my opinion, the band shouldn't be fronting any cost at all. Right?
That, ideally,
we're
no.
on your label.
Yeah.
You are here to make we made the music. We're doing the artistic part. Now you need to make this happen for us. Right?
Yeah.
Because that's the game, right? As the label is, we need to put you on the stages. We need to play your music in these certain spots. We need to get your merch in these outlets. And then if it fails, it's only because people people did not like it.
Yeah, which is fine. I mean, then you learn something.
Yeah, but I feel like now they approach these bands, they're like, we need you to have like 45,000 Instagram followers before you can talk to us.
See, and that's not the right direction.
That's the reverse of what we are coming to you because we need a following.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a lot of labels are losing money on bands that maybe they love but couldn't sell their records. I'm sure that happens a lot. And I mean, you have people now with Instagram followers, they're just buying their followers or, not.
And you can tell who's doing it, by the way.
Oh, sure.
You know who's doing it.
But I mean, there are cases where people book these tours and nobody comes because their fan base isn't real.
Right.
So
now everybody loses.
Yeah. It's not good.
Yeah. I mean, there are some labels locally and around here that, I've kind of talked to, I've had a chance to talk to people either online or in person about, their thoughts. And it feels so antiquated. Like they're looking for someone who's like, you've got that star power or whatever. And it's like, what the fuck are you talking about? And it's like, because we have these talented bands where it's like, these bands are better. And I know music shouldn't be like a competition, but there are bands that are here locally that deserve to be on a higher platform than some bands that are already on higher platforms.
Sure.
And I think that's what it is they don't get that representation from a business standpoint of how do we put you in contact with these shows and tours, basically, right?
Yeah.
How do we make sure when you go on tour, you've got T-shirts, koozies, a vinyl, something so that not only do people have cool shit, but you can have money to help you sustain and get ready for the next record and pay these things off. And when you talk to those people, they're like, yeah, what we look for is, we want somebody who recorded a great record, like put all the money up for that themselves. And then it's packaged nice. If it's somebody who can like create great artwork for us, that would be good too. And then if they have a following, and then if they do have context, like they need to get out on the road and start doing that stuff. And it's like, the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
You just said they did
job?
They did all the stuff that the label's supposed to do.
And that's exactly why we're not interested in trying to find a label.
Yeah, really, you just need a handful of bookers in different regions that you can trust to go book us up in these areas.
Yep. Because no one wants to take a chance, and it's all about the safe bet. So I think it's really people start labels because they love music.
Yeah.
The good labels like Honor Records and plenty of other ones.
I want the I want the like. I don't know if you could ever get it back on radio. Maybe it's just going to be podcast now. But I want the music lovers who don't give a shit, right? Where you have your regional radio station that just plays music, right?
Yeah.
The dream DJs of like the 70s where it's like I got this new album when I was out here doing this thing. I'm going to drop some acid and let it ride.
Yeah.
Because that's music, right? Is when you're packaging it in with these rules, it's when you're destroying the whole. That's why part of the reason we're where we're at is like the radio stations are all conglomerates. They own the billboards, they own the venues, they own the ticketing systems, and it's now look what we have. We have all these bands that can't get a fucking foot in the door.
Yeah.
And then when somebody like, Pearl Jam or somebody, or I think even Taylor Swift talked about how this is fucking everyone.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
But we still, it's like, I'm guilty. I'm guilty of this, Bandcamp is better than Spotify for an artist.
Yeah.
but their app just isn't as good as Spotify.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And so somebody's got to take a leap at that company and or somebody anywhere. Maybe it's not Bandcamp, but somebody needs to make the Spotify that pays the artist.
Yeah.
And that would change the ecosystem of music so much.
Yes, I agree.
But it's going to take somebody who goes, it's not a good business decision. We could have made $1 billion. Now we're going to make 30 million.
Yeah, I mean, because you got to be on Spotify and it's free. And so it's like right from the start, now I have to have content that's not on Spotify. So you go to Patreon and it's just like a whole...
You mean you got to have it not on Spotify to give something to your fans, you mean? Or
Well, I mean, like if you want to sell your music...
Yeah, which is really impossible now.
Yeah, then you can't be on Spotify and you have to be on Spotify so people can hear you. Mm-hmm. So I guess having a Patreon is good, but like what you're talking about with the Bandcamp, selling your merch and all that, yeah, it would be nice to have some kind of platform where people could go to listen to the regional stuff.
Because they still do the thing on Fridays, like you guys get all the profit or something, right? Isn't that one of their angles? Yeah, they were doing that for a while, I think.
They do stuff like that.
Like it's better, but it all needs to be better.
Yeah, it's still rough. We still sell most of our merch at shows, so we just encourage people to come to the shows if they want merch.
Yeah,
because it's so much to keep up with. Like we sell out of things, and then we have to market as sold out, and shipping everything out.
Right, it all cuts into your profit. That was the biggest thing I learned printing up this vinyl is. I thought, oh, this will be cool. I'll work my ass off and get it distributed in stores for this band. Mm-hmm. Because since I printed the vinyl for them, I took on the cost. I did all this. And my goal was I just want to make a little bit of money back, and then if I can get a small percentage, if we happen to sell a ton of them, that would be great. But it was all heavily in favor of the band. And but then you realize it's like, man, not only is vinyl expensive, shipping a record is expensive, and then you don't want the packaging of the record, like the corners and stuff, to be all fucked up when it gets there. So now you got to buy the heavy-duty record shippers, and fuck, I need bubble wrap. And then what if they cut into it with a knife too aggressively and slice their record open? Well, I should put a little piece of cardboard here so they don't do right?
Yeah.
And you start seeing all the things, and you're like, oh my God, like if I sell this at cost to a store to put it on their shelf, I maybe make $1.
Yeah.
Right? And it's such an uphill battle.
It is.
And I don't, because then you start realizing big acts, well-known acts, when they distribute it through a store, they're really not making any money off that. Yeah. It's kind of just part of the game of getting it there,
Yeah, the label or whoever put it out gets that money.
One of the bands I was in, before music had shifted to this, so we were a 3-piece punk rock band, and we had played a lot locally, and we thought we had something pretty good. So we were like, we recorded, I think it was like maybe 12 songs on an album, did it all ourselves, and we were like, the only way we're going to know if this is worth anything is if we get out there, right? Just like what you were talking about. So we did this like DIY, book up all these shows we could, and our plan during the summer, we were going to do it for 3 months. Our plan was we can find shows, like Thursday through Sunday, but then we've got those Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday where we don't want to be broke, so what do we do? So we thought, Warped Tour is going on. That was still happening.
Yeah.
And for people who don't know, Warped Tour was like 5 stages, 45 bands.
Oh, yeah.
And this was in it was like $25 a ticket.
Yeah, it was
incredible.
The best time to go to shows, really.
Something that was a terrible business decision on paper, and then it ended up being the biggest, most profitable tour at the time.
Yes, I mean...
So make bad decisions. But anyway, so we thought, hey, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday... maybe we can beg people to listen to our stuff, and maybe we'll sell a few records at Warped Tour, at the gates. First day we showed up, we sold 120 CDs.
Absolutely.
People were super receptive. We're like, wow, this is a fluke. And then we went to another one and we sold 150. And we were just walking up at the time with cell phones weren't what they were. We were walking up with a CD player and headphones. You want to check this out? It's some new music. And they're like, yeah, of course. Yeah, it's Warped Tour. Duh.
Yeah.
And then they'd be like, yeah, I love this. $5. I'll take that. That's incredible. Thank you so much. And it was really cool. And then we went and played a couple really shitty shows, didn't make any money. And we sold 10 CDs. And then we hit another Warped Tour and we sold 200 CDs.
Yep.
And
Because everyone's there for that.
Yeah, and that's when we realized, like, wow, there's like 20,000 people here. So 200 CDs is a very realistic goal.
Yeah.
And we were just working the line in the morning, and then we were working the gates when everybody was coming out. And we got in trouble because we were in, I'll have to find the picture sometime. We were in a black and red polka dot van that we had bought from some spoiled son of a church pastor or something who, like, it was a church van, and he was like a little shithead, so he like painted it all up and drove it through a field and fucked it up really bad. And then they sold it to us for $200.
Oh, wow.
And all it ended up needing was like tires, and I think it needed an alternator and a battery.
Wow.
And then it ran. And my brother always knew how to work on cars, so he kind of like fixed it up a little bit for us, and we took it across the country, Nice. But anyway, we at the time, it's like, we've got dyed hair. One of the guys got a mohawk. We're in this van. It looks like we're on the tour.
Yeah.
And they had different security at the venues. There was like Warped Tour security that traveled, and then there was like venue security. Well, the venue security was in charge of band parking. So they just started waving us in.
Yeah, right.
They see a Texas license plate when we're in Arizona, and they're like, yeah, right this way, guys.
Yeah.
And so we were like parking with the bands.
Yeah.
And then at that time, I think the lowest rung on the ladder of bands there was, they called it the barbecue band. So the tour would pay for everything, but they were responsible for like cooking food, and they had a big barbecue every night at the end of the show. And so the bands would basically go through like a buffet line style, and one of the bands is serving you, and then all the other bands are like tipping them. So it was a way for them to make money.
Oh, cool.
And also meet bands, and like you're introducing the new people to these veterans. So you might be a brand new band and you're serving barbecue to, Bad Religion. Right.
Yeah.
And it was pretty cool. And, we would go in there, since we were like selling these CDs, we were making pretty decent money. We were making like $2,000 a day,
Wow, that's wild.
And so we'd go through and we'd each just like dump a 20 in because we weren't on the tour.
Right.
And we're just like, are we cool?
Yeah.
And those bands were just happy that we made them, like $100 just then. And, but then they caught on because one of the Warped Tour security guys was like, we need to talk. I was like, I'm so scared of you. Because he was like
some
big scary.
Yeah.
And it was Warped Tour. So like, this dude is like 6'5", bald head, tatted up, and he looks scary.
Yeah.
He was super friendly though. And he's like, yeah, we know you're not on the tour. We've been watching you guys. The problem is you're moving merch.
Yeah.
And you're
making money.
You're taking the money before they get in, and some of the bands are getting upset that maybe they're not able to sell merch because you guys are taking money out here. And it's like, okay, reasonable complaint, I suppose. But we were just just please don't kick us out, whatever you want. And he's like, so just like, maybe be cool, maybe not be so aggressive, like do your thing, but like back up a little bit. I was like, thank you so much, by the way. Because at this point we were in like Washington, and it's like, we went coast to coast. The only place we didn't go was Canada because we didn't have passports, because we didn't think this was going to be a possibility.
Yeah.
And, then we talked to one of the other bands, and God, it was one of those big emo bands at the time. Like a Christian emo band. I can't remember which one it was. They were
like Under Oath, maybe.
It was one of those.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh yeah, you're in whatever that band was, and they're like, yeah. And they knew our story, and I was like, well, you guys must be doing incredible on the tour if we're doing this. And they were talking to us. They're like, well, what label are you on? I was like, we're not on a label. And they're, well, how'd you guys do the record and everything? I was like, we had like 2 jobs, each of us, and like funded it, and they're shitty jobs, And then they were like, well, what do you sell the CDs for? And we were selling, at that time, we just had the one CD for, it was either $5 or $10. And he was like, well, how much do you guys, how do you work it all? I was like, oh no, we don't have a label. Like, it's ours.
Yeah.
And so we had it separated where, like, if you sold the CD, if you were in the band and you sold 30 CDs, you made $30 that day.
Oh, okay.
And then another $1 went to gas, another $1 went to pay off the record, and then I think the last $1 went to pay for the next record.
Oh, okay.
And then it was something like that, and then we had a separate little bit of cash where it's like, we would end up, like, I think you were on your own for breakfast, and then we'd buy you, like, as a band, we'd just purchase lunch and dinner with the money.
Okay.
So you're traveling around the country, potentially making like $50 a day, not spending any of your own money.
That's perfect.
And it was great, right?
Yeah.
And that guy was like, yeah, we make like 40 cents off each album. I was like, fuck, that's
insane.
Sucks. And then I started to realize the angst and the anger of why they were getting frustrated that, like, we're out here making money and these labels are kind of fucking them, and they need like every penny they can get. And that was my first eye opener to, like, well, what is this label doing then? It's like, yeah, they put them on the road, but they're not making any money. They're not, and they're doing all the work.
Yeah.
And that was like a big, like, okay, it's only going to be special labels that actually contribute, what they should.
It's almost like you got to get to that point where you're selling so many records that you just can't be ignored anymore. And
you can make the terms.
And that's when you finally start making some money.
Yeah, because I struggle to see the purpose of a lot of newer labels. I think you have your well-established ones that try really hard, but like a new one, it's like, man, what do you bring to the table? If you're not willing, like you said, if you're not willing to, actually put your money where your mouth is and take a huge risk.
Yeah.
Will you pay to put these guys on the road and get it out there, knowing it could be 2 or 3 years before you recoup anything?
Yeah.
But you believe in the music.
And I would work with somebody, they don't even have to put the money up for us to go on the road. I mean, just providing the tour manager and the distribution alone would be enough for me to work with a label. But a lot of them won't even do that. So,
have you asked them and they say, "Oh, we just can't"? Or
no, it's just what I hear from other friends who worked with this label or that label, and then judging from the distribution deal we had on our first record and going, I guess that's not everybody gets to.
Yeah. What kind of distribution do you look for nowadays? Like, where do you want it to go?
I mean, the places where we're touring mostly, and Europe.
No. I mean, do you want like a physical copy of something to go somewhere, or like what's your version of distribution that you want for your music?
Well, I just want to see it in as many stores as possible.
Gotcha. So something physical on shelf somewhere.
Yeah, like in the vinyl record shops.
Yeah. That seems tricky.
Yeah. I mean, when you're on tour or even in your own hometowns, you go to the local record stores, and a lot of times they'll buy a few of your records, at least if you do it yourself that way. But you definitely want your record in as many places as you can get it. But,
Are you designing a lot of your artwork? Because I know you have your own art that you do outside of the band.
Yeah.
Are you designing merch?
Yeah. I did the T-shirt and the logo, and I did the letterings and stuff on the record, and Joe did the rest of it, like AI animation kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. But
because what do you consider your artistic style? Like, what are the mediums you like to work with?
I've been doing a lot more color stuff, like digital, because I can do it from my phone versus like drawing it out and then converting it to the computer and then doing it all over again. I can just start on my phone and draw it.
So you like a lot of digital art?
Yeah, now. Yeah. More lately.
Weren't you painting in the past?
Yeah, I still paint. But, it just looks really nice and clean when you can do it from the computer. And I just like simple stuff, but, as long as it sticks out in any kind of way.
Have you ever thought about making that more of a focus than it is for you?
Oh, yeah. It's just...
I feel like having those two worlds would end up helping each other.
They do. And, I worked in a T-shirt shop for a while, and just learning how to print shirts and how to design shirts and all that was so much fun. So I could definitely see myself doing that. And having a band, you need shirts all the time. So it all kind of goes together. You
ever thought about making little videos about your process of art?
That's a good idea.
Because you've got
suggested.
You have to know now you have a unique way of thinking and way of going about your process, right?
Yeah.
So maybe you should consider sharing that.
I
totally
should.
Separate thing from the band. Just start Sammy Kidd's whatever artistic thing that you're doing, but go through that process of basically just record yourself. I mean, since it's digital, you just need a screenshot or a screen recording of it all.
Yeah.
And then you can voice over later what your thought process was and show final products. And
it's a great idea.
It's all, it's free. And then, I think the more they connect with you, that then eventually they'll find that music, and you'll just have this nice, this blend of people who enjoy those sides of you. And
yeah. So it's a good idea.
Why aren't you doing it?
I mean, I guess I should start.
I think you should, man. I mean, you could do limited runs of just interesting art pieces.
Yeah.
Just for fun. Again, make a bad business choice.
Yeah.
Just make some stuff that's fun and interesting that you like. And, you could do like a gallery show.
That would be great. I would love to do that.
Yeah. What have you ever thought about doing it before?
I've checked out some galleries recently just to see what like art was selling or what they had, and they had some cool stuff. There's a lot of AI stuff now. I like to do more my hands and that kind of thing, but I would like to learn, other mediums and other things too.
You might need to try it, man, because artistically, you seem to know how to trust your gut.
Oh, okay, thanks.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You like, this is what I want to do. I'm going to do this.
Right.
And other people would really, wane over like, will people enjoy this?
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Well,
and you're just, I feel like you have a good sense of like, I like this, and here's what we're going to do this time.
yeah.
Because even the last track on the record, that's a totally different angle from a lot of the other songs y'all have done.
Yeah.
And I caught myself going, yeah, more of this, Sammy. Give me a little more of this.
Yeah.
I could tell that was a path where you got to really experiment more, because it's a slower. How would you describe that song, first of all?
The last track?
The last track.
I don't know.
The one where it's like a really like the guitar sounds like it's in a cave down the block a little bit, and you're singing much differently than you normally do, a little more vulnerable.
That was it. Probably closer to what I was doing when I started writing the first time, just by myself
With the acoustic stuff.
Yeah, definitely a blend of the two things, I think.
You ever thought about having a little solo project?
Yeah, it crosses my mind every now and again.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I guess I'd just have to record it and see if I like it.
You're going to frustrate me, because I don't think you realize you have all the pieces to a bigger puzzle here.
I think you're right.
You do, though.
Yeah.
You got to think about it, man. You've invested a lot of time in your own scene, right? You're a veteran of the scene, that you've garnered the respect you would need to, if you started things, I think people would support you.
Yeah.
You care about art in a way that is not affected by either what others think or like a profitability standpoint. You're not viewing it from that. You're viewing it from like, does this need to exist?
Right.
I believe this needs to exist for these reasons, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You care about the ecosystem in terms of the people that exist and the people that are coming in, how important that ebb and flow is. And then you have, artistic talents that are around, outside of music.
Yeah.
That also matter, right? Like you're talking about your experience with printing T-shirts and all these things that would be of great value if you were putting that knowledge with all these other bands in your scene. Like you're one of the pieces.
Yeah, okay.
Have you thought about that yet?
Not from that perspective, but that is it. It gives me some ideas.
You're the person that should be doing some of it.
Yeah.
Whatever that may be, like just trust your gut, right? Whatever version you want to do, that's what but you should find that thing here locally and go, okay. I have to take it upon myself to kind of be a steward of this because of your status now, right?
Okay.
And just whatever that is for you.
Yeah.
I'm putting that on you.
Thanks. Appreciate it. Need to push every now and again.
Well, but because like what you did with that festival, the fact that you would put that together, right?
Yeah.
Now that most people aren't going to do that because it's too much work. That they're going to fold.
Everyone told me that when I was trying to do it too.
Yeah,
I was like,
did it.
no, I'm going to do this.
Yeah. Yeah. So what else? I mean, think of what else you might be able to do.
Yeah.
Maybe you're the record label.
Oof. Maybe.
Not yet, but maybe it becomes that.
Yeah, maybe.
Like what if you were going to offer one thing to bands right now, something that you could do. One of these young bands is like, man, I love Mean Motor Scooter, love your stuff. We're trying to do this thing, and you're like, I think I could help you out with this. Have you ever thought about that?
Yeah, I try not to step on toes because, when you get in that
But let's just say they asked you.
If they asked me?
If they asked you, like, could you help me with anything, something?
Oh, yeah.
What would you feel like I could do this?
I would probably start with helping them design some T-shirts and go from there. If they wanted some help studio-wise, then we could come to Joe or, if they need somebody to track something or that kind of thing, I could do that too.
The T-shirt thing alone.
Yeah.
I don't think you realize how important that could be.
I think you're right.
Because, when we're talking about, like you're from a generation where you would have gone to like CD Warehouse or something. You would have been flipping through CDs, right?
Yeah.
You would have seen cool artwork and gone, ooh, what's this? And then like some of the CD stores, you'd be able to like demo it and see if I like this or not. And it's like, bam, now you found a band that you love all because there was some cool artwork.
Yeah, that's
right.
True.
T-shirts are the same way. How many times have you seen someone's shirt and been like, who's that? Where did you get that?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Maybe that's, maybe you just start doing limited runs. Like, hey, I would like to start making limited runs of 50 T-shirts for people.
That's a good idea.
A unique Sammy Kidd design. Tell me about your band. Tell me what you're looking for or your project. Or maybe it just inspired you and you're like, hey, this really, you know, this is what I got out of this. If you guys are interested, we could just do this. And maybe they're able to front the cost for the T-shirts. It's just they got a cool design and didn't have to pay somebody to do it or whatever. And maybe that's a step you could take.
Yeah, absolutely.
You don't seem excited.
Well, it's just I do commissions for people, but it's it's a lot to pay for art, or it's a lot of people. I don't know.
Would you feel gross if you took back just a little percentage of them selling that merch? Would that make you feel better about it? No.
Yeah, I mean,
well, what would make it work for you where you felt
selling.
good about it, but you also didn't put in so much effort that it's not rewarded in some way, you know?
I think I'd have to just take some time to give it the full focus. I'm kind of doing that right now, like trying to build up my portfolio a little more and more each day to where I'm just getting the habit of, if I come home from work, I got 3 or 4 hours, draw something.
Mm-hmm. It shows. I mean, I've seen you, every now and then you'll post stuff and you see the progression. So that's good.
Thank you.
You're going to have to find something to do.
Yeah.
You can't be this involved and no one push you to take another step at it,
yeah.
whatever that may be. But just stew on it. Because I think that's going to be one of the big parts is just people like us, if we're talking about it, it's like, okay, well, what do I bring to the table? Because nobody's going to change it for us, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I would, if I could encourage people out there, is like, if you like to write, if you like to draw, if you like to do whatever, find a way to get in your artistic scene and add value to that, right? Because I'm sure you guys are finding with the new record, it's like, it's hard to even find promotion anymore.
Yeah, I mean, everything's changing. I mean, before we got into a routine where people were coming to us and we could just kind of put it out and do what we wanted, but things are kind of just in a weird place right now. So it's like,
what about going back to your roots and hosting an open mic?
There's an idea. I like that.
No money involved.
Yeah.
No real, it's a little bit of time.
Yeah. Just find the right place to do it.
Yeah.
That'd be fun.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I'm going to leave it on that because I want you to really think about that.
Okay.
No, dude, thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, thanks for having me, man.
Always enjoyed the music, and I've always loved your specific style, in writing, performing. Tell everybody about the new record, how you want them to find it, what's going on with this new release.
Well, I mean, it's on all the streaming platforms, so you can listen to it on Spotify, Apple Music, all that good stuff. We're taking some pre-orders. If anybody wants the new record, it should be out before we hit the road in September.
Nice.
So we should have it by then.
All right. And it's Daydreamer, right?
Daydreamer,
There you go. And I've been a fan. It literally, when I looked at that EP and I saw it was released in 2015, I was like, wow, I've been a fan for almost 10 years now, dude. Time just goes.
I know.
But still, it's evolving and sounding as good as ever. So great work on the new album, man. And everybody go check it out.
The I'm a Fan of podcast, music, comedy, and more.